Apparently, we're the villains in a story we didn't even know we were in.
And spoiler alert, the plot twist involves clocks, condos, and inheritance rage.
Well, this is Jim. Because somebody has to hoard all the housing, hog all the jobs, and take all the good parking spots.
And it's a stab. She owns enough cuckoo clocks and Royal Dalton figurines to trigger a millennial meltdown. And together, we're Unretired AF.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Unretired AF podcast, and where we're going to be talking about millennials versus boomers and what they say behind our backs. But before we do that, we want to give a shout out to our subscribers. Thank you so much. We had a nice boost in subscribers this week, so we really appreciate your support.
Yes.
And if this is your first time visiting our channel, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, we thank you. And if you enjoy our content, which you're back, so I'm hoping you do, we'd ask that you please hit that subscribe button.
All right. Absolutely.
All right, so let's get started with today's episode. We're going to start off with the boomer death clock. Did you know that someone invented the boomer death clock?
I had no idea.
All right, this is the baby boomer death clock, which shows the boomers, which were born in 46 to 64 and are now aged 61 to 79. 36% of us have died. 53 million are still alive. 31 million are dead. There's a death every 14.5 seconds, and 5,957 died today. So what do you think about that?
Wow. I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, it's like they're tracking our death.
Yeah. It's like they're a little bit obsessed with us, I think.
I think so. I think so.
Well, and on Reddit, there is a whole discussion about it.
Wow.
So this is the real-time baby boomer death clock chat on Reddit. And what they say is, this person says, I wanted to share this amazing clock. We have hope.
Wow.
And then this other person says, anyone else find it funny that the site looks like it was built by a boomer in 1995? Which it does.
Wow.
I used to write websites in 95. This link comes up pretty often in this subreddit. The moderators should add it to the sidebar. And a third of them are gone, and there are still way too many randomly assaulting little kids and people minding their own business. It would be impressive if it wasn't so disappointing and depressing. And then this one. I absolutely love this. I want it as a digital picture frame on my wall. So this is a conversation that is happening on Reddit. And here's what one person said. I am actually excited and can't wait. It honestly looks like everything I hate about the U.S. will change when they die. I was thinking of leaving the country, but to be honest, I might just wait for them to die. We shall see.
Wow.
Is that crazy? And how about this one? Almost certainly positive from a socioeconomic aspect. They have squandered the wealth of our nation for the past half century. So, I mean, I was already apparently squandering the wealth of the nation when I was 12. And are completely oblivious to the fact that their parents, not they themselves, are the greatest generation. Instead, they are the most selfish generation.
Oh, we're selfish.
Yeah. But this one's my favorite. I called her the whiny one. All of their savings will go to nursery homes. So I think she meant nursing homes. Medical treatment, or natural therapist scammers. I heard about an oncological patient that got rid of 2 houses, 2 cars, and $100,000s of savings to pay for natural therapy for cancer. Family was left with nothing. Nobody could do anything because cancer. What about their kids? Effing their lives for their own feelings. What the hell? I would like to see old people held accountable and responsible for their offspring's future.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I know. Is that crazy?
I'm taken aback.
I know.
Totally taken aback.
I know.
Man, well, there's also a creepy trend on TikTok that cheers generational turnover.
What does that mean? Generational turnover sounds like code for.
Yeah. See ya, boomer.
I think you're right.
The retirement and death of the boomer generation is going to have enormous effects on American society and world society. I mean, these are the people that are leading the country. These are the people that own everything, 90% of the wealth in this country. So you're going to see this enormous transfer in wealth. But not only that, the cultural mindset of the boomers, love it or hate it, is going to disappear. They're really not passing it on in any real way. So as soon as the boomers are off the world stage, you're going to have a very, very different country. And suddenly you dump all this wealth into people's laps. I think there's some aspects of this that are going to be completely unpredictable. I don't know what the younger generations are going to do with trillions and trillions of dollars, and what dreams they have. And I don't think anybody really knows. And I think we need to start talking about it in the next 15 years. I don't think the boomers realize that they are about to exit the world stage. I think a lot of the hullabaloo we hear nowadays is the death throes. I think that's maybe an unfortunate phrasing, but the death throes of the boomer generation.
Well, he can just kiss my ass.
I mean, I think he makes some good points. I mean, I think there are a lot of young people in our country that don't necessarily love our country or love the American way of life. I mean, I don't want to get super. I don't want to get super political at all about it, but I think it's not a political issue. I think it's just they don't have the same patriotism. They don't have the same American dream goals. That
And they don't have the same education.
Right.
They don't. Hell, they don't even have civics anymore to learn about this stuff.
Right.
So
you can't blame them in a way, because it was if they weren't taught to love their country or to love,
I guess,
capitalism or the American dream or whatever however you want to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird to think that even this topic is slightly political and we don't mean for it to be. I mean,
right.
I mean, the American dream is open to everybody from both sides of the aisle, or even the independents in the middle of the aisle.
Right. Right.
But I think he has a good point in saying that maybe the millennials and the Gen Z don't want that. And so what are they going to do when they get all this money? Or are they going to be like the hippies? The hippies were, peace, love, smoke weed, living in a camper van, hitchhiking everywhere. But now they own stuff and they're the boomer generation.
Well, I'm never going to apologize for working hard and accumulating wealth. I'm not going to do that.
No. But I'm just saying, do you think that they're going to be and have the same sort of mindset change that the hippies had? Because the hippies are the boomers.
You
know what I mean?
I do.
I mean, they were like, we don't care about materialism. Well, when they were young, the hippies didn't either.
Yeah.
But now they are the boomer generation, and of which we're the tail end of.
Right.
And, I think that they changed their mind somewhere along the way,
I wish I could sit here and tell you what makes them tick.
Yeah.
But I don't. I mean, I'm shocked by some of the stuff that we've just looked at.
Well, and I think these are some of the extremes. I don't think everybody feels that way. I mean, we both know millennials that are not this way. But I didn't realize until I started doing research for this episode that there really is a lot of resentments. And I think it's a taught resentment. I think they were taught in school and from pop culture to dislike the boomer generation, and told a lot of lies about us that weren't true. But I think that just like every generation where you've got younger and older, the younger generation sees some of the flaws of the older generation, and they're true. Just like we did with our parents' generation.
Right.
I mean, I think that that's the case. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway.
Well, have you ever heard of a millennial, if you offered them cash or to give them something, them to say no? No.
Well, I wouldn't have turned it down either.
Well,
when I was,
I guess my point, though, is as boomers, if we have acquired wealth and we can offer that, they're never going to turn it down.
Yeah, but my question is, what are they going to do with it? And I think that it's a good question. And, make no mistake, this isn't a hostile episode against the millennials and the Gen Z, because, I mean, we have people we know, and we have our kids are in that generation. And we see in our industry too a lot of millennials and Gen Z who are really successful, and they're doing things different than we did.
Right.
I mean, they're not in the hustle culture that we did, and they're not materialistic.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of materialism in our generation. I think we can look at some of the things they say and laugh about it.
Yeah.
And not get offended.
Right.
And see what's true and what's not true.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
All right.
I would agree with that.
All right. On to the next one. The thing that they're saying about us, which is sell your house already, boomer. All right. So now we're going to look at the next one.
Boomers don't want to die, and they don't want to sell their homes. Boomers used to sell their homes, go to Florida, get a condo. Boomers don't want to do that. They're actually retiring, in some cases, to bigger homes. It's kind of hilarious and somewhat satanic. Everything's material. So this big house that they lord around. I mean, some of my friends' parents, I'm writing a book about them. They're hilarious. They know nothing. I mean, nothing. But they lord around these big suburban castles, and their whole sense of self-worth comes from this. It comes from materialism. So the idea that they would leave this big house, which is every argument that a boomer ever tries to win, they just point at their house. They have zero idea. They've read no books about anything. The less really truly funny generation, I think, because everyone has becoming flattened, but they are just very funny and deeply selfish. I mean, it's funny, but they're never going to get rid of these houses. So their kids are kind of, they're being held hostage. I mean, the whole economy, Pelosi, Biden, these very old people, Mitch McConnell, they won't retire. None of them have any plans on retiring. They want to die in office. Nobody will sell their house. Nobody will step down at their job. It's just a generation of people that don't want to stop.
So what's wrong with wanting to keep busy and keep working?
Well, let's first correct the biggest lie. I mean, it's Pelosi, Biden, and McConnell are not boomers. Right. They were not born in the boomer generation. Right. They're in the silent generation. So they're older than the boomer generation. Yeah. They've just been around, and they've been around forever.
Right.
But they're not boomers. But I mean, it's not hoarding a house that you freaking bought yourself to live in it.
Right. And I gotta say, we tried downsizing. We hate it. Yeah. We miss our space. And we're gonna get more.
Especially now that we have time to be home more.
Right.
We should have had the smaller place when we were working all the time.
Right. And we're going to upsize. We're going to get a bigger place again.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
Here in the Phoenix market, private equity firms, and the big one here is BlackRock, and I think Capstone. Well, I'm not sure about that. But they're buying property, they're developing, they're putting on houses as rentals. And I'm talking thousands of them.
They're building whole subdivisions.
Thousands of them. Yeah.
Whole subdivisions that are just rental.
100% rental.
Yeah.
So stop blaming the boomers for that.
Right.
And put the blame on BlackRock instead.
Right. Well, and it's weird that some of, I mean, I will preface it with some of, it's weird that some of the millennials think it's selfish for us to want to keep what we bought ourselves.
Right.
Like what did he say? We're holding them hostage?
Yeah.
Because we won't sell our house? That doesn't even make any sense. No, I mean, that's BS. We'll call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
I get it, and I'm not, it's not lost on me right now that, like, if Jim and I were to buy a house, like what we currently have in Phoenix, we couldn't afford it.
No.
That's why we're upsizing and we're moving away from here.
Yep.
And that's what I would tell, the millennials and the Gen Zs.
Right.
Because, buying a house here in Phoenix is a regular 3-2 in a decent neighborhood is going to run you $400,000
minimum. Yep.
And honestly, that's not what a lot of people can afford. And it's what I can remember, because I lived 12 years in California when I was in my 20s. I moved from Phoenix to California to LA. Arizona now, Phoenix area is become like California. Because when I was in my 20s and even in my early 30s, the only people that owned homes were professionals. All the workers, like I was a legal secretary for 15 years, and all of the workers rented. Everybody rented.
Yeah.
Even some of the associate attorneys rented because they couldn't afford on $45,000 a year, which their associate starting pay when they were just out of law school. They couldn't afford to buy either.
Right.
So what happened is a lot of people have come from California, and they brought their California money,
right,
and it's driven the prices straight up here and made it unaffordable.
Yeah.
But it's not our fault. It's not the boomers' fault.
It's not. It's not.
I mean, just a lot of things happen. Like you said, the private equity the private equity has come in and overpaid.
Right. And an individual person can't compete with that. Mm-mm. There's no way.
No. Like say the house is listed for $380, they'll offer $420.
Right.
Why would anyone offer like that?
I mean, the market.
Exactly. It's just crazy. So anyway, that's it. That's the housing situation, I think, buttoned up. All right. The next section of what they say behind our backs. You're hoarders. They're hoarders. And then they're stuff shaming us all the time. So we're going to watch a couple of videos that are a little more lighthearted on that.
Excited. I've been thinking about it and I've come to a really good decision I think that you're gonna like as well. I've decided that instead of going through my stuff now, I'm gonna have my kids do it when I die. Yeah, when they're grieving me and stressed out, I'm just gonna have them do it. I think that they're gonna prefer it that way, honestly, and then I don't have to do it now. So it's a win-win.
Boomers are starting to age. I feel like there's one conversation that we need to have, and that conversation is, what are we going to do with all of the grandfather clocks?
As someone with boomer relatives who downsized, I can tell you the problem is so much bigger than grandfather clocks. Be prepared for shelfie clocks. So many shelfie clocks. And wall clocks. So very many wall clocks. Then of course we have the bedside clocks. It's really important to pass this on to the next generation. Imagine the horror if you come across a 20-year-old iPod and cannot use this device to listen to music. You will tend to these things so that they can be visited, to make sure that they're safe and secure. We wouldn't want to sell them. And I'm confident that the fact that I don't wind and replace batteries and plug in all of these clocks also makes me ungrateful.
I think that I could be guilty of some little bit of collectibles, but I think there's a difference between hoarding and collect.
It doesn't matter if you like it. It doesn't matter.
I know, but I also think that you and I have also done some decluttering.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to leave that, to the future generation or to the next generation to have to go through all of our shit. Like I do collect Royal Dalton figurines. I do collect Hummel figurines. I do collect China sets. I do have a cuckoo clock, and
yeah.
I used to have 2. I only have 1 now.
But a lot of us are uncluttering.
Right.
We are. We have.
Right.
We have. And quit calling my stuff junk. Pisses me off.
Well, and we get that our kids don't want to be stuck with our stuff. We get it. But when they say, just get rid of it, it just feels very dismissive. It does. It feels bad.
It does. Because I guarantee if it's something they like, it's going to be the greatest thing ever.
And they won't like the same stuff we do, but they will have their own collections of
Yeah.
shit that they will have
Yeah.
when they're older. I mean,
Whatever.
I think that there is, I think there always has been animosity between the generations, but I think it's just more vocal now. I think there's less respect for older generations than what younger generations
Right.
had, because I think we always had disrespect for the older people to some extent, some of their ideas and stuff, but we always respected them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just how we were raised. All right. The next section is that they complain about behind our back is you won't hand over the reins. So now we're going to look at another video.
We're getting older now. Yeah, we won't be here forever. Okay? Because someday, you're gonna have to take the reins and lead the way. Please go take a long nap. I know you're scared. It's a big responsibility. I've been paying taxes for years to a death cult and feel totally misrepresented. We've tried to leave the world nice and tidy for you. No, but okay. Won World War II. That wasn't you. Invented fire. When you see a beautiful coral reef teeming with life, you don't think of me. Yeah. And we promise to share everything we've built with you once we depart. Okay? You're still here. I'm still here. You know, with recent medical advances and stuff, you're just never going to die of transfer power. No, I'm going to spend all my money on robot organs. No, I don't think so. I'm going to go live in a 110 and over only community made out of diamonds on the moon. Great. And like seriously never ever sell my 5-bedroom house I bought in 1982 for $40K. I'm gonna live forever as a very rich, old, powerful robot man. Oh god. Here's what you do. You walk into any store with your resume, firm handshake, wearing a bow tie, of course. It's like that doesn't work. It's your fault, you're fucking lazy!
Imagine working until you literally die. I just talked to one of my friends and he told me at his large global company, his CEO is literally in his late 80s. And look, it's no secret, the job market is absolutely brutal. And what I'm thinking is there's a lot of boomers who are in executive level positions who are almost refusing to retire. They're literally choosing to work until they die. They probably don't need the money. They're probably, financially secure, but they're not letting go. Like they're literally not retiring. And because of that, they're actually holding up jobs for younger people who are entering the workforce, or Millennials or Gen X, people who are ready to take that next step. But they can't because there's an 80-year-old or a 90-year-old continuing to work. I don't know if you're listening to this, boomers, probably not because you're not on TikTok, but if you are, it's totally fine. Just retire. Open up some positions for the rest of us so we can grow in our career and we can just move on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. You have any comments about those? The first one was pretty fun.
The first
robot
one
organs.
Robot organs can live to 110.
We're gonna live in 110 and over 110 and over only community.
So I didn't know that the millennials were lined up for CEO positions.
I know.
I mean, that guy's working because it's working.
Right.
He's the one making it work. He's the one making it that allows that millennial to have a job.
Right. We're not clinging to power, but we're still contributing to society.
Right.
And we don't have to diminish for millennials or the Gen Z to rise.
No. And we encourage you to work because you want to.
Yeah.
We don't have to hustle forever.
Right.
Our generation is the hustle generation. We know that.
Right.
It's hard for me, and it's hard for Tav, to not do anything every day. But that's just the way it is.
Well, and we probably won't retire until we're unable to work anymore. But
right.
But we work on our own terms too.
Yeah.
It's a lot different, I think, if you work for a boss. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that into my later years.
Yeah.
And I can understand why people would want to retire, would want to stay working.
Yeah.
I mean, but back to what this is about is this attitude that we're we're the cause of all the problems for all the millennials and the Gen Zers, and not all of them feel that way, but for the ones that do, it's like, get a grip.
Yeah.
Get a grip. I mean, we had the greatest generation before us, and then the silent generation, and they were big generations of people too.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
So, and it's a little different too. Jim and I were talking about it earlier today, that like when we look at our parents who were raised by our grandparents, and our grandparents were the greatest generation,
right?
Our grandparents couldn't understand us when we were young, because they're just like, go get a job and you'll get a pension, and and that happened for them, and it even happened for some of our parents.
Yeah.
But I mean, all these people who think all these boomers are just like rolling in dough with big pensions, they're on crack. I mean, that's not the case for a lot of us. In fact, there are a lot of boomers and Gen Xers who don't even have any retirement at all. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that in previous episodes. Yeah. So, this just needs to stop.
Yep.
All right. So the takeaway from this episode is that every generation has its quirks.
Definitely.
Every single one. And we need to have conversations rather than create generational wars. I mean, I think we just need to try and understand where the other was coming from and call each other out on our bullshit when we have it. Because I think there's aspects of the boomer generation that they're accurate criticisms of our generation.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, some of these kids feel like maybe we pushed them too hard because we were in the hustle culture, and so maybe some of them didn't get the childhood that they would have preferred because we had them at sports, events, travel teams and going, and they didn't get that same childhood that defined us.
Yeah. So remind me again, though, which generation built the internet? Oh, yeah, the boomers built the internet. I forgot about that. Now, the millennials have made some pretty cool apps.
They did all the cool apps.
They have.
I mean, we built the infrastructure, but they made it cool.
Yeah. So.
And continue to make it cool.
And continue to make it cool.
I use a lot of cool apps. I'm sure that were developed by millennials and Gen Z.
Yeah. I think we could agree, though, to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Maybe go have lunch or dinner at a diner.
Yeah.
And, well, let's make sure the diner we pick has decent Wi-Fi.
Because none of us can stay off our phones for 5 minutes.
And work some of this stuff out.
Yeah.
So, we have a comment section. And if you have anything that you would like to comment about, life stories, if, you agree or disagree with what we're saying, drop us a note in our comments. We read every one of them. We answer them. And we'd really like to hear your thoughts on them.
Yep. We'd love to hear your comments. However, if your comment starts out, okay, boomer, we will be blocking you. All right. Well, oh, yeah, I have my part.
You do?
Sorry about that. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to see our episodes every day, Monday through Friday in your feed, please hit that subscribe button. We would love for you to join the Unretired AF revolution of other boomers and Gen Xers who are not ready to slow down and stop yet.
Right.
We'd be the bane of the millennials, but we don't hate them. We don't hate them. So anyway, well, we're not slowing down.
And neither should you.
And together, we're Unretired AF.